There are forces of good and forces of evil at work in the world today. What are these forces? Who is responsible for the good? And who is responsible for the evil? Richard Shoff talks about current events which are rarely discussed by the mainstream media, events that affect us all. This program seeks to identify, to inform, and to equip the believer for what's ahead. Welcome to What in the World is Going On?
This is What in the World is Going On. I'm your host, Richard Shoff. The program, sponsored by Lincoln Log Homes. We are pro-Christian, pro-American, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, here only by the grace of God. Let's start by looking at the big story that we're all talking about this weekend. Trump pulling back on the Iranian strike because he said 150 people or so would be dead if he did it. Yeah, our president last Friday blocked a planned military strike against Iran because he says that it would not have been proportionate a response to Tehran's downing of an unmanned U.S. surveillance drone, adding that more sanctions were imposed late last Thursday night against Iran. I saw the president on Fox News, and I'm going to quote what he said, and I'm sure many of you saw it on Fox. We were cocked and loaded to retaliate last night on 3 different sites. When I asked how many will die, 150 people, sir, was the answer from a general. 10 minutes before the strike, I stopped it. Not proportionate to shooting down an unmanned drone. I'm in no hurry. Our military is rebuilt, new and ready to go. By far the best in the world, Trump said in a series of early morning tweets. Sanctions are biting, and more added last night. Now, I don't know when he first knew about the casualties that would be incurred. I don't know whether somebody spoke to him, whether the Lord spoke to him. He became aware of it. Don't know the details. But I am thankful that our compassionate president did make that decision. Incidentally, a commander in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard told a semi-official news agency last Friday that the drone had been accompanied by a manned U.S. spy plane that the Iranian forces decided not to target. Now, whether that was related to our president's decision or not, I don't know. But that fact that the plane was there with 35 American men on it was confirmed by U.S. intelligence. The planned U.S. attack would have involved airstrikes and was close to being carried out when it was stopped, an official told Bloomberg News. But he wouldn't discuss whether the plan might still be reviewed. And, of course, Pompeo and National Security Advisor John Bolton were pushing for the strike. Trump changed his mind based on some additional information on Iranian decision-making. This according to one of the officials. Iran was not giving any warning about a possible retaliation. Again, I'm thankful for the compassion shown by our president. You know, he's faulted by everything, every decision he makes, every action he takes. As I've said on this program, the man could discover a cure for cancer, and the Dems and the press would find something wrong with it and criticize him for it. Back to our presidential actions and comments. He did point out that Iran will never have nuclear weapons, not against the U.S. and not against the world. His quote. Sources told ABC News the reversal was against the advice of Secretary of State Pompeo and National Security John Bolton, but taken by our president anyway. Incidentally, we are or are in the process right now of sending additional 1,000 troops to the Middle East as tensions escalate with Iran. Our ships are still ready to launch cruise missiles if necessary. We are ready, folks. We are ready. And our president is standing tall in the saddle. Meanwhile, can anyone doubt that Trump is the Rocky of American politics? Did you see him last week in that Miami speech, that rally where he officially announced his 2020 campaign for re-election? The 20,000 people in the arena, along with the thousands of people watching outside on jumbo screens, were all on the same page. He's been a great president. these past 2.5 years. They want more of the same. And I'd like them against anybody I can think of, but I want to tell you something. If you look at the 23 Dems that they've thrown and give us a choice on, boy, he sure does stand tall, doesn't he? Well, that crowd was excited, and they were happy. And it was some phenomenal support of the president, much to the chagrin of the angry left. And man, were they angry. They've lost any semblance of tolerance or open-mindedness. You know, the radicalized American left is motivated by one thing and one thing only, and that's to destroy Trump. If they've got to liberate the country as founded, they've got to destroy our republic, so be it. This is how deranged the Democrats in Congress and the anti-Trump moonbats. I guess they spend their days in misery for nothing. But they're actually pretty disorganized and deranged, in my opinion. Trump's been a great president this far. Is this perhaps why they're so mad? He's accomplished more in 2 years and no president since Reagan has done the job that he's done, and he's done it in less time. I think those Democrats are a bunch of, I guess, what do you call them, psychopathic rage of envy, maybe is what they're experiencing. They're embarrassed by their own failure to transform the nation under the radar into their version of the Soviet Union. Like Hillary and the rest of the left, they've always been thoroughly convinced the bulk of the American people are sheep or lemmings, easily led by the intellectual betters, which just happens to be them. These self-appointed betters are so-called elites who, for one privileged reason or another, found themselves in position of power. They actually do believe that they're superior beings meant to tell the rest of us how to behave, how to speak, eat, drive, and live. We've got to do all things according to their specifications. They'll never, ever operate by the same rules they devise for the rest of us. They're privileged, you see. They're smart. They're powerful. They got big walls around their houses. They got guns or guards defending them. But boy, we can't have a wall to protect our country, can we? And they don't even want us to have guns to protect ourselves. You see, they don't need to abide by any rules, including the Constitution. They are, as we see every day, above the law. The rest of us are well below. The deplorables, we're subject to the whims of our government's institutions. That's how they think. That's our left. That's why the Trump rally in Orlando, if they designed to watch it, left them quivering in their boots with shock. I don't think that they ever thought they'd see the day. After all, with the media on their side, they were certain they would have brought the man down by now. Instead, he's more powerful than ever. The press is looked upon with absolute scorn, and for good reason. They, and I'm referring to the New York Times, Washington Post, NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, they've discarded any semblance of objectivity a long time ago. Hey, even before Trump came on the scene, they're just more open about it now, and their bias comes out now that Trump's elected. No person reasonably well-informed pays any attention to these propaganda outlets. Do you watch it? Man, I don't. They're jokes, one and all. It'd be a waste of time and paper to follow them. I don't like everything on Fox, and I don't like everybody they got. But it sure is great to have one station that's fair and balanced. At least it is, in my opinion. Then I like the alternative news, too. Well, Trump has survived nearly 3 years of this onslaught of vicious attacks by his detractors. He's been set up, framed for things that he didn't have any way of controlling and is no way guilty of, and still they insist he's guilty of something. He's been vilified 24/7 by the print and electronic media, and still many thousands of supporters showed up in Orlando to see him, and they're happy campers. Put a mic in the face of the anti-Trump person, and what do you get? Hate, rage, profanity. It's always been the left that's truly racist, That's why many African Americans who were in attendance in Orlando can tell you about that. Hey, incidentally, folks, it was reported that he raised $24.7 million in 24 hours when he announced he was running again. Got something like $100 million in a bank account for the next election. Good job, Mr. President. The left has done everything in its power to destroy Trump, and all they've done is to expose their own hatefulness, intolerance, and rage. They don't seem to realize that all they've done is drive people closer to the man. He's a happy warrior. He loves this country, and he loves its citizens above all. Happiness sells, success sells, national security sells. Record low unemployment's a good thing, as is a great economy. All this really upsets the left. They hate this man so much, they root for the nation to fail. But you know, Trump is the Rocky of politics. He takes their beatings, he gets battered, bruised by a despicable media, but he never gives up. His speech in Orlando was rocky on the 72 stone steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art to the strains of Gonna Fly Now. Folks, in short, Trump is just getting started. Granted, the fictional Rocky's beginnings were humble compared to Trump's, but then Rocky never had an entire movement dedicated to his annihilation. Despite the escalating idiocy of his detractors, Trump is a winner, a true champion of America. You know, many of us feel the same way. Trump expresses our feelings. We share in his victories. We share in his triumphs. He is our leader. He is our president. He makes us proud. Meanwhile, folks, I got to tell you this. This is the second time it's happened. Up in Statesville, there's an RV retail outlet that's flying a big flag. They've made national news at least twice. I've seen it national news coverage twice on Fox. Big flag. Well, they're being fined $50 a day because that flag is too big, according to the city council's regulations on signs. I guess the flag is a sign to them. Well, just recently, their city council was called in to possibly change the law or rules so the flag was legal, but they voted it down. That's right. They voted down to permit the flag to fly. Made national news, saw it on Fox, I'm sure some of you did. Already over $10,000 has been paid by the owner of the RV sales company. Well, there's an American that's standing tall. It's reported that he has put up an escrow to cover the fine of whatever it is, $50 a day I believe it is, for 100 years. He said, they're not going to take my flag down. My flag will fly. That's the type of American that I'm proud of. He's got courage of his convictions. You see, I don't know his political beliefs, but I'd sure could bet on him. And while we love our president, the Rocky of American politics, some of us like that RV camp owner up there in Statesville. They stand proud with him. In ourselves, I guess we see a little bit of Trump. He's our hero, folks. He's what makes us tick. And meanwhile, the cabal is freaking out because of Trump. The legal and financial expert, a guy named Wayne Jetz, wrote something I'm going to share with you. Quote, he wrote, "No one in history has ever stood up to the secret cabal running America the way President Trump has. Signs abound in the mainstream media that they're freaking out." He points out, and I'm quoting, "They're freaking out because the noose is slipping over the heads of some of them in terms of prospects of their being tried for treason or for some other heinous crime. There are many of them. That network, I'm sorry to say, goes far and deep throughout our society. Many of them are doing all they can to make sure this comes to an end as soon as possible. We have a president who is actually a dedicated enemy of the forces that have put our presidents in office or killed them generation after generation, well back into the 19th century." End quote. This guy Jet, he calls this a fight to the death between Trump and the left. He said, and I'm quoting him again, "This is a death march, no question about it. And I'm encouraged, compared to today and where we were in 2012 and 16, I had considerable confidence that President Trump was going to prevail. I didn't care what the polls said then. I don't care now. There's just too many indications that our press lies to us in whatever ways are necessary to support the ruling elite, because they are, in fact, the instruments of the ruling elite. I can't see how you could have a worse candidate for president than Hillary Clinton. But Joe Biden may just be it." But he points out in conclusion, "I am optimistic." Well, a little bit of good news on things. I see where Ralph Reed is chairman of the Faith and Freedom Coalition. I know Ralph Reed from back in the days. Remember Pat Robertson when he was running for president? Well, I don't know what Ralph Reed was, but I met him then. We met in Pat Robinson's house when he was running for president. He was working for him to support his candidacy. Anyway, Ralph Reed, fine American, is now the chairman of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, and he said a week ago he promised to organize the most ambitious and far-reaching voter mobilization effort in evangelical history. I'm quoting him. It's going to be the most ambitious and far-reaching voter mobilization effort in the history of the conservative faith community, and it's going to be roughly 3 times the level of what we did in 2016. He told that to the Washington Times. He said his group plans to register 1 million evangelical voters, knock on 3 million doors, and pass out literature to over 117,000 churches. Their hope is to reach about 30 million people. President Donald Trump has over 80% of evangelical voters voting for him in 2016, and recent polls show that 3 in 4 evangelicals approve of Trump's job performance today. They not only are fully supportive of President Trump, they believe that he's been as strong or better on core issues than they have seen from anybody that they've ever supported. Boy, you can say that again, can't you? I think we're going to have a strong wind at our back in 2020 because there's such a deep reservoir of gratitude, appreciation, and affection for the president because of the number of commitments and promises that he made, that he's kept. A quote from Ralph Reed. Again, folks, he's our Rocky, isn't he? Listen up, fellow Americans. Listen up, fellow patriots. We can't sit on our butts and wait for the Republican victory and not do anything but vote Republican in 2020. It's not enough. Oh, it's important, but it's not enough. We had a warning from Dean Garrison I'm going to reference. He pointed, wake up, people. The fix is already in for 2020. The powers that be, those deep state people, the establishment, or whatever you want to call them, have a plan, and it's not one that'll make most Americans happy. At least not us patriots. According to Gallup, conservatives still outnumber liberals by a healthy margin, although that margin has dwindled. Since 1992, the percentage of Americans identifying as liberal has risen from 17% then to 26% today. This has been mostly offset by a shrinking percentage of moderates. They've gone down from 43% to 35%. Meanwhile, from 1993 to 2016, the percentage of conservatives has consistently been between 36 and 40%. Before it dropped to about 35% in 2017 and was holding at that level in 2018. But we still outnumber the liberals by double digits. Well, why did we lose the House in 2018? Folks, I think it was laziness and complacency. I think that was a big part of it. We're going to have to always assume that the liberals, they're going to cheat to win, because they often, if not always, do. Here's a few facts I want to bring to your attention, and this is why we're going to have to be active. We can't just wait until the election to vote. I'm not certain we can trust any of the polls lately. I don't remember that they were right in 16. Do you? On the eve of the 16 elections, pretty much everyone was predicting a Hillary victory, so don't be too upset over the polls. Newsweek back then went so far as to pre-print Madam President magazines. That's right. What an example of fake news. Every lying media narrative wrapped in a bow before the outcome had even been determined. They all thought Hillary was going to win. While supposedly Newsweek was hedging their bets, they'd printed some of the similar Trump editions, but the point is that the establishment thought they had it sewed up. Someone leaked a story about Newsweek's recalled Madam President magazine. That's right. It's hilarious. Newsweek licensee Topic Media created the magazine. They said 125,000 copies with Hillary Clinton on the cover were printed and shipped. That's how sure they were that Hillary was going to be our new president. 125,000 printed magazine. That's a pretty big bet on the establishment candidate. This is America, folks. With social media clearly against us now, and they've always been, don't try to hide it, we're going to have to find ways to get the word out without them. Almost none of the important media channels are on our side, and if we lose in 2020, America will be changed forever, and the fix is in for 2020. You know it, and I do too. The media is biased. Terrible. Well, we don't have any magic bullets. I wish we did have. Certainly we need to spend less time on Facebook and Twitter and look at some of the alternatives. We're going to have to find ways to get the truth out. NewsGuard is blocking us online. The social networks are not with us. Most people don't dig deep into things as you and I do. If NewsGuard says it's fake news. They'll tend to believe it. Most people do not understand how dirty politics really are. They don't understand that dead people tend to rise from the graves to vote, and they vote Democrat. They really do. Remember this? Up in Virginia, it was a swing state in the 2016 election. Hillary Clinton won Virginia 49.75% of the vote. Donald Trump, 44.43%. The governor was a Democrat. He was a rabid Clinton supporter. Name, Terry McAuliffe. A guy named Victor Skinner reports from eggnews.org that on August 8, 2017, a guy named a James Madison student named Andrew Spieles, S-P-I-E-L-E-S, received a 100-day prison sentence in federal court after he pleaded guilty to registering dead voters for the Democrat Party during the 2016 election. While working for the Democrat campaign during the voter registration drive, Spieles falsified at least 18 Virginia voter registration forms that were submitted to the registrar's office in Harrisburg last August. This is a report from WSET. This is one small voter fraud, but this is an example of dozens that became public after the 2016 election. Here's another one. Just 2 weeks ago, a guy named James Christian Adams dropped a bombshell on Fox and Friends. He claims there are 4 million dead people on the U.S. voter rolls today. Elections report that this J. Christian Adams told Fox and Friends on their program there are 4 million dead people on the polls. Who is this Adams? Well, he was the voting section attorney at the U.S. Department of Justice, and he's filed 6 suits in the past year against Philadelphia and Broward County, Florida, where the voter polls are proven to be corrupt. He said he had one case in Texas where the person died in 1944, and they were still on the rolls to vote. Far-left groups continually sue to keep the voters' rolls the way they are. The Obama administration had no desire to clean up these voter rolls. Just think about the scams that never came to light. I'm sure it's worse than we even know about. The bottom line is that Democrats will cheat, and their supporters don't care. They believe the ends justify the means. Liberals believe the same thing about free speech. Free speech should only be protected if they agree with what's being said. This is truly what they claim to believe. If you think that Fox News and Breitbart can win 2020 for us, think again. The people are going to have to do just like they did in 2016, regardless of the roadblocks ahead of us. 2018 was a failure for America. How do we lose elections ever when Republicans still out Democrats in America? Simple answer. The Democrats cheat to win, and they'll cheat again. They'll cheat in 2020. If the Democrats do take all 3 branches, America will be lost. We're going to have to find a way to fight back. We've got to do whatever it takes to win without cheating. Conservatives are going to have to fight harder than ever before to win in 2020, and that fight needs to start now. We're going to have to take back the House, extend our margin in the Senate, and by all means keep Trump in the White House. You see, if by chance we lost all three branches of government, the America as we know it today would be lost forever. 2020 is that important. Today, liberals want more than victory. They want to imprison anyone who opposes them. And if we don't pull this off, many of us could literally go to prison. If you don't understand that this is real, then you simply haven't been listening to what the Dems have been telling you lately. I'm going to have to fight to avoid it, folks. How about you? How can you fight? Well, you can start by staying informed. Go to the alternative press. Seek out Drudge Report. Listen to Sean Hannity on Fox. Judge Jeanine on Saturday night. Listen to Lou Dobbs. Listen to Tucker Carlson. Don't believe what the Dems are telling you on the liberal outlets. We don't read the Washington Post much down here. Don't listen to, what's his name on Joe Scarborough. It's all garbage. It's all lies. It's all propaganda. A few things are happening that are good that can give you hope. Florida just set a very important precedent. As reported in the Miami Herald on Friday, the 14th of June, Florida Governor DeSantis signed the Federal Immigration Enforcement Bill, their Senate Bill 168. He was keeping a promise he'd made during his campaign for governor. I knew he'd make a great governor if they elected him down there. He was a great congressman when he represented Florida in the U.S. House. Well, Governor DeSantis minced no words in characterizing the serious problem SB 168 is intended to address. He says, and I quote, "Sanctuary cities basically create law-free zones where people can come to our state illegally and our country illegally, commit criminal offenses, and then just walk out the door and continue to do it. In Florida, it's not going to happen." You see, he signed the bill that there'd be no sanctuary cities in Florida. And up in Pennsylvania, Senator Toomey, Pat Toomey, he's been fighting to end the nation's sanctuary cities. He said he's going to reintroduce his, quote, Stop Dangerous Cities Act, end quote. That would withhold federal fundings for cities that choose to endanger all of us. In other words, sanctuary cities don't get any more fundamental support from the U.S. He said, and I'm quoting him again, "I'm going to insist on a vote and take another run at getting this done." He's the Republican senator from Pennsylvania. He said this on Fox News, America's Newsroom. He said it's outrageous when city governments confer a special legal protection on citizens, provided that they come here illegally. It's madness, he said. It endangers all of us. Toomey called Philadelphia one of the most egregious sanctuary cities there was, and said such cities, by attracting criminals who are in the country illegally, jeopardizes all our safety. Toomey said the issue is a defining one in the 2020 race, but he doesn't see how reasonable people can conclude that criminals should be freed to roam the streets because they entered the country illegally. He notes the president has been right on this. Republicans have been right on it, he said, and I quoted, "It is about our security." People get that if Democrats want to continue to defend the proposition that violent criminals should be turned loose on our streets as they got here illegally, good luck with that. It makes no sense, and I'm going to try to see that it's stopped. A bit of other good news that we just got. 2 Catholic bishops are speaking out, opposing large-scale Muslim immigration. Hey, a real patriot, U.S. Cardinal Raymond Burke, he counters the Pope Francis open borders push. This patriot, U.S. Cardinal Raymond Burke, says being opposed to mass immigration is patriotic. He's a top Catholic cardinal, and he's declared that opposing large-scale Muslim immigration is patriotic. Running contrary to Pope Francis' ongoing push for open borders, Cardinal Burke said that resisting mass immigration is a responsible exercise of one's patriotism. He added that you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that many Muslim migrants are opportunists. He explained by saying that Islam is, by definition, believes itself to be destined to rule the world. Cardinal Burke is the former chief judge at the Vatican's highest court and the ex-Archbishop of St. Louis. He made those comments during the Roman Life Forum held in Rome, Italy on May 16th through 17th of this year. There are voices standing up. There are actions being taken. There are prayers being given. We can't just sit around. We've got to act. We've got to support our man. We got to stand tall with our president. He is the Rocky of our day. God bless until next week.